My next guest, we have visited with him before here on the program, political analyst and Republican strategist Ford O'Connell. Ford, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Well, as a Texas expat, it's always good to be on the air in the Lone Star State. Before we begin, I got to ask you one question.
Sure.
What's going on with Texas Tech football? You guys are allergic to playing defense.
It's this. You know what? It's the same thing that's been going on for far too long with Texas Tech football. Really good offense and really bad defense, it looks like.
You got it. I mean, I thought you guys were going to hit the 80s on Saturday against Arizona State. But anyway, I just thought I'd put that out there. I'm rooting for you. Just hoping for a little more defense.
We all are. Appreciate you rooting for us. Hey, Ford, let's talk about this election. We'll get into the long term and the polls here in just a little bit, but I want to talk about this weekend and the health issues with Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump, I think, has responded really well. He really hasn't gone after her health wise. He has said, "Hey, hope she gets better," and he's focused on her comments earlier in the weekend of basket of deplorables. How does Hillary's health scare impact the election moving forward in your mind, and also the lack of transparency surrounding all of this?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that she's in a hole right now because every time her health has become an issue, it's become an issue more than just this past weekend, obviously 2012 with the concussion before the Benghazi hearings, and there have been other episodes. The campaign has literally just been deceived and been dishonest on every single answer. And I think that honestly, if they hadn't been that way and they'd been a little bit more transparent with what took place over the weekend, it wouldn't be such a problem. Right now, they're scrambling behind the scenes, the Clinton campaign. Their biggest concern is this trust deficit that they have, because essentially in politics, if you lose trust, it's a very fragile thing, and once you've lost it, it's gone forever. So right now they're battling a trust issue. If Hillary is unable to sort of resume a presidential campaign schedule, a regular one, in about a week, it's going to switch from a trust secrecy deficit issue to more of a actual health issue, in the sense is she able to physically and mentally execute the job of the President of the United States. If it comes to that, that could be a real feather in the cap for Donald Trump, and I do agree with you. He's handling it properly. Hillary, I wish you get better, but he's smart enough to go out on the campaign trail, not talk about it, but make the case that he has the stamina to be president, at least physically, and that's why you see him doing so many events this week.
Who presses this issue moving forward? Once she gets back onto the campaign trail, because as you said, it'll switch over to, is she healthy enough to actually be president in the Situation Room when there's a high-stress moment? Can she handle it? Do you leave that for the press to take on, or do you leave it for Donald Trump to take on? Because you still have to walk a fine line, don't you?
No, you're absolutely right. You do have to walk a fine line, and unfortunately, I don't trust the press here, because it's very simple. The press has decided that Donald Trump is dangerous. They are going to let everyone know about it, and they've dropped their sort of journalistic credo for fairness. Remember, the greatest power of the press is not to shine a light on something, it's to ignore something. And they're going to continue to, ignore the Hillary health situation as long as they can. Now, if it really gets bad, then they have no choice but to do it. So the press is not the best way to go. The best way to go is going to be in the debates, and also to have the outside groups and the Trump surrogates talk about it. The candidate should steer clear of this and just say, I'm healthy and I'm doing my job, and I wish her the best.
Visiting with Ford O'Connell on your website, FordO'Connell.com. You have a presidential scorecard, and you have the electoral map. And on your map that is what was last time it was posted, you had Hillary Clinton with 347 electoral votes. You see the polls, though, that are tightening, and even in some swing states, Donald Trump's either pulled ahead slightly or he's even with her. Where do you have this race right now?
Well, right now, Hillary Clinton, if the race were to be today, she's going to be the 45th president of the United States. But there has been a lot of movement in the polls. They are tightening. And one thing that the polls are not accounting for, which the Clinton camp is extremely scared about, is turnout. Look, if Donald Trump is going to become the next president of the United States, he's going to have to win the 206 electoral votes that Mitt Romney captured in 2012. He's also going to have to win the state of North Carolina, the state's the state of Florida and the state of Ohio, if he's going to have any shot of winning. At that point, that puts him to 253. Just so your listeners know, I'm sure they do, you need 270 to win. My question, where I'm scratching my head, and I have a feeling that some in the Trump campaign are as well, is where are you going to get the other 17 electoral votes? If he wins the state of Pennsylvania, he's over the top. But if not, he's going to have to pull a Pennsylvania, a Michigan, or a Wisconsin from the Democrats. And understand something, the Democrats have won all three of those states every single time since 1992.
So what are the chances you think right now, and if Donald Trump has a good debate performance here in a couple of weeks?
Okay, I'd put the chances right now, if we were to walk into a Vegas casino, it's 65% to 35%, 65% chance for Hillary Clinton. That doesn't mean that Hillary Clinton isn't nervous, and that doesn't mean that the debates aren't going to be everything. If the polls keep tightening the way they do, and Hillary continues to have this trust deficit with respect to her health, the entire election may rest on the debates, and understand why this is so important. We're going to assume in the first debate about 100 million people are going to tune in. The highest debate since 1980 was only 80 million, and that was Reagan and Carter. So we're looking at about 100 million people, and of the 100 million people, understand that only about 40 million of them, okay, this is going to be their first impression really of either candidate outside of what they read and see.
Right.
So when you think about that, these debates become a bigger deal for Donald Trump than they do for Hillary Clinton because she currently has a 2 to 3 point edge.
Well, and if you look at the press coverage of this, what I am anticipating, and I want to get your thoughts on this, is that the bar is going to be set so low for Donald Trump that he just has to come across as a guy who could be in the Oval Office, who you could sort of picture in the Oval Office. And for Hillary, the narrative that she is the most accomplished person in the history of the world to ever run for president, she's got to come across and knock out a Grand Slam home run, right?
I absolutely agree with you that is the case. I think that the expectations are far higher for Hillary, and she's put that on herself by saying, I'm the most experienced person ever, I'm a policy wonk, this, that, or the other. Remember, the cardinal rule in politics is undersell and overdeliver. And part of the reason why her team is claiming that Trump is getting graded on a curve, in a lot of ways, I disagree with that, but if you want to take that case in the commander-in-chief forum we had last week, the reason is very simple, is that the Clinton campaign has basically gone out there with scorched earth and called Trump a dummy for so friggin' long that essentially if the guy puts two lines together on a teleprompter without regurgitating on himself, he looks presidential. So the Clinton camp has created, in some ways, their own monster, but I do think that Donald Trump has really done a good job over the last 4 weeks under the guidance of Kellyanne Conway as campaign manager of staying on message. My only concern for Donald Trump in the first debate is him understanding that sometimes less is more. When you're given an answer, sometimes just do not continue to wax on like he sometimes does about Vladimir Putin.
Yeah. Does he have to get specific? Does he have to talk about specific policy goals and how he's going to accomplish something?
Yes and no. When we say specific, he doesn't have to sound like a policy wonk. He just has to sound like he has a command of it. For Donald Trump, he is going to try to win this on style. And let me be honest with you, the key for him to win this is to come out there and look confident and try to make her look defensive, because a lot of this is about perception. That doesn't mean you're trying to hoodwink the voter. It does mean that you have to understand that a lot of voters also don't understand the ins and outs of policy. What they do understand is your body language and whether or not they think you do.
Visiting with Ford O'Connell, a Republican strategist, political analyst. You can visit his website, FordO'Connell.com, where you can also pick up his book, Hail Mary, the 10-Step Playbook for Republican Recovery, and see a lot of different breakdowns that he does. Ford, I appreciate you coming on, and we'll visit with you, I'm sure, again through this election.
You got it, my friend. Take care.
Have a good one. That's Ford O'Connell. You can follow him on Twitter as well, at Ford O'Connell on Twitter.